Okay. Well, again, thank you for joining us for our winter weather spotter training. My name is Tony Edwards, and I'm the warning coordination meteorologist here with the National Weather Service in Charleston, West Virginia. Should have a pretty good turnout tonight. I think we've had more registered for this for any class we've done before. And I actually saw folks from all over the country. So this is going to be geared more towards the central Appalachian region, the mid-Ohio Valley, but if you are outside of that area, I think you'll get some information that will be useful to you as well. But again, my name's Tony Edwards, and I see a lot of familiar faces on here, but some I don't know. So if you've never been to one of our classes before, welcome. And again, this is more geared towards winter weather. We devote a class just for that because of how complex winter weather is. But we also have other spotter classes as well that talk about severe weather, tornadoes, flooding, and you can find those on our weather spotter page on our website. So we'll talk more about that coming up. But I'm going to turn my webcam off here. We can devote the entire screen to the slides, and we'll get started. So again, that's me. My email address is on the slide there. I'm the warning coordination meteorologist. So I do a lot of outreach and interactions with our partners and the public, and lead an effort to ensure the evaluation, adjustment, and improvement of what we do in the National Weather Service at Charleston. So, you know, it's very important to me that that folks know the products, how to get weather information from us, but also how to deal with the weather that comes at us. And so winter can be pretty hard on folks. You know, we haven't had much of a winter in the recent years, but winter can be hard on us. And so I want to talk a little bit about that, about the winter ahead, but also about how we can prepare for that. So that's a little bit about me. And again, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Also in the GoToWebinar, if you've never been on one of these before, there'll be a little box on your screen that you can use to alter your settings. And most of you can probably use the computer audio, but if you're having problems, if you don't hear anything I'm saying right now, you can also use the phone call option. And so you could use your phone for that way. If you have a question, so I'm doing this by myself, and I am at home in full disclosure. So if you hear a dog barking, yeah, that could happen at any moment. But if you have a question, please type it in the questions box. And what we'll do is we'll take a break at the end, and we'll go through all the questions that are asked and answer those as best we can. So that is there on the screen for you. Now, if you don't see anything, you just see a little small box, click that orange arrow, and it'll expand out, and you'll see what I just talked about. Okay, so bottom line up front. I want you to know that your observations of snow and ice are extremely important to us in the National Weather Service. We don't have any automated equipment to measure snow. We've got weather stations all over our region, but none of them measure snow. We rely on human beings to tell us how much snow has fallen, and ice, you know, those impacts from ice are very important as well. So this slide just talks a little bit about what we do with our observations of snow and ice. We adjust our forecast as needed with your observations of snow and ice. We send those reports out to the media and the world through local storm report product. And your report may help change someone's plans and even save lives. You know, if you've got a snow report that you pass along at, say, 5 o'clock in the morning when most folks are asleep, and we get that, and it causes us to maybe issue a winter weather advisory just to advise folks that winter weather is causing slick and hazardous roads, and that changes someone's plans that day. Maybe they could just go into work a little late. You know, your report really set that into motion and really could not only change plans but save lives. We use your reports for verification purposes, so we know how good and bad our forecasts are. And we include them in post-event summaries, which are very important by state and local emergency management and even FEMA in a really bad snowstorm. So you can see it's a simple thing, just sticking a ruler in the snow and telling us how much is on the ground, but it means a whole lot to us. So here's our outline for our presentation. And this shows you where we're going over the next 45 minutes to an hour. We're going to look back at last winter, overall trends, memorable storms. It was pretty pitiful. We're going to talk about that. How to properly observe and report winter weather, what to report, how to report it, and how to send it to us. Then we'll talk about forecasting winter storms and why it's so hard to forecast winter storms, and then how to find winter weather forecast information. And then what everybody's waiting for, the winter outlook, what it means for our region and how to be prepared. So let's take a look back at last winter. You know, I took this picture last winter down at Breaks State Park down in Southwest Virginia. And a beautiful area, but this is what we saw a lot of last winter. Not a lot of white, just a lot of brown. And you know, we didn't get a whole lot of snow. In fact, it was one of the warmest winters, one of the mildest winters on record. This is a, you know, it's subjective. How bad was last winter? It's kind of subjective, right? Everybody has a different way of seeing that. But there is actually a product, the Accumulated Winter Season Severity Index, that attempts to quantify how severe the winter was. And you can find this at the web address on the bottom of the slides. And by the way, these slides will all be posted on our Weather Spotter page. This recording will be posted there, and I'll push information out to you if you've registered for that. But just these will be available for you later on. So you can write the address down, or you can just pull it off the web page when those are available. Or you can just Google Winter Season Severity Index, and this will pop up. And so this is what it looked like last winter. Across the eastern United States, you see a lot of red dots and red diamonds. So anywhere you see a red dot, that means that it was a very mild winter, and the red diamonds mean it was the record mildest winter according to this index since 1950. And in our region, Elkins and Beckley had record mild winters. Out west, you see purple, a lot of blues and purples. That's where all the cold air and the snow was. And you actually see some purple diamonds over Idaho and Wyoming and Montana, out back into Nevada. That was extreme winter, record extreme winter out there. So really amazing winter out there when it comes to the snowfall. But you can see the chart on the right. We have Charleston in the upper right and Elkins in the lower right. And the red line is last winter. And it's interesting how this kind of bitty bops around early in the winter. Charleston, we had a little uptick there, and we actually went to borderline severe winter in late December. And we'll talk about why that was in a minute. But after that, winter was over. Man, it was just a mild winter. Same at Elkins. Here's some of the snowfall rankings across our region, or lack thereof. Beckley, 11.5 inches of snow, the least snowiest winter since 1893. Charleston, Elkins, the second least snowiest winter, and Huntington, the third least snowiest winter since 1897. February was warm as well after the cold snap we had in late December, which I'll talk about in a minute. January and February were well above normal. In fact, it was the warmest February on record in Clarksburg, the second warmest in Huntington and Elkins, and the third warmest at Beckley and Parkersburg. And I took this picture at my house. You can see the daffodils poking up on January 12th. They were up really early in the year, and this is what it looked like by the end of February. And I haven't lived here that long, 7 years, but it's certainly the earliest that those had fully bloomed out. And so here's the overall picture for the country. You can see the temperature anomaly on the left, upper left, and the red means it was very warm. The blue means it was below normal. And so even out west, the temperatures weren't extremely cold, but it was below normal. But the east, even a few counties up in New England and in Northeast Ohio, that were the warmest winter on record. And then the precipitation on the right, you can see it was kind of all over the place for West Virginia and the Mid-Ohio Valley, mainly below normal, but above normal in the southern parts of our region. But out west, California especially, just got hammered with a lot of rain and, of course, the snow in the mountains. So this is the snowfall accumulation last year, and it's hard to see, but you can see some, I don't know what color that is, cyan, light blue in the California mountains. That's over 50 feet of snow fell last winter in those mountains. So that's where all of our snow was. It was out west in the Rockies and in the northern plains. So here's one of the memorable storms last winter, the Arctic frontal passage that went through our region on December 23rd. You can see here at the Charleston Yeager Airport, the temperature trace, it was 45 degrees at 2:43 a.m. and by 8:43 a.m. it was 42 degrees colder, 3 degrees above zero. And that Arctic front that passed through and brought that really cold air was accompanied by some really strong winds. We had a lot of trees down, and then some very cold wind chills. We had record low wind chills that were approaching records in some areas. So the coldest on here was 30 below zero at Beckley. So really, really cold, not records, but really, really cold. And luckily, it didn't last very long. Nothing much happened in January. We had some flooding in February. This was Milton. The town of Milton flooded really badly February 16th through 17th with some heavy rain. So that was another memorable system we had last winter. And then, wow, the big snowstorm. Most people don't know, maybe don't even know this happened, but if you live in the mountains, up at Canaan Valley in May, actually, May 1st through the 4th was the heaviest snow of the season. We had a really, really high elevation, but intense snowfall. You could see Davis in Tucker County, 20.3 inches. That was a largest May snowstorm on record, not only for Davis, but for the state. And that also made it the snowiest May on record. So there was not a whole lot of snow in the valleys. In fact, this picture on the right shows that really nicely. You can see the heavy snow, but down in the valleys, nothing. It was a really, really elevation dependent snow. And so it only affected the highest of elevations. And that was it. And that was all she wrote last winter. So I'm going out on a limb this winter, and we'll talk about the winter outlook, but just as a teaser, I'm going out on a limb and saying we're definitely going to get more snow this winter than we did last winter. Now here in Charleston, that means we only need 3.1 inches. So yeah, I'm really going out on a limb there. I think that's a safe bet. So let's move on to part 2 here, how to properly observe and report winter weather. So we're going to talk about what to report, how to properly measure snow and ice. I think you're going to have some opportunities to do that this winter, and then how to get your reports to us. So what do we need to know about in the winter? We need to know about snow, sleet, and freezing rain. Again, we don't have any automated measurements of snow. We do have some automated measurements of freezing rain at our ASOS locations, which are at the major airports. That does give us an ice measurement, but those are few. We only have, they're few and far between. We have 6 in our service area that provide that value. So we really need more reports than that. But snow, it's a human being measuring the snow. That's all we got. So these reports are very important to us, and even intermediate reports. If we have a big storm and you're stuck at home, why not just send us a report every couple of hours? Let us know how that snow's piling up. All that's very important information to us as we fine tune that forecast. Very important, and then give us that one final total at the end. But again, any occurrence of freezing rain and then those changeable precip types, there's a really neat app, which I'm going to talk about, called the MPing app, that can allow you very easily to get those reports to us. So when we're talking about measuring snow, how do you do that? If you've got a flat surface outside, say a picnic table or porch railing that's decently sized and flat, then measure on that. That's a great way to get that measurement. If you want to do it professionally, you get a piece of plywood, say 2 feet by 2 feet, and you paint that white and you stick it out in your yard or someplace away from trees, away from where it can be disturbed, and you measure on that. Of course, it's important to kind of mark it so you know where it's at if we get a really good heavy snow. But don't measure on the grass, as that will artificially inflate your snow total. And 2 snowboards are great. You can use one for new snow and then leave one undisturbed. And that's really important for if we get multiple snows, maybe one on top of another. That way you can, how much new snow fell, but then you've also got an undisturbed board to measure snow depth. Both of those new snow and snow depth measurements are important to us. Let's take a look at what to use. A ruler's great. That's typically what most people use. We prefer measurements in tenths of an inch, but if you have a ruler that's a traditional ruler that measures in fractions of an inch, just give us that fractional measurement and we can convert it to you. What about ice? So ice is very tricky because you can take measurements on a round surface like a tree branch, which is radial ice accumulation, or you can take a measurement on a flat surface like a fence post or a porch railing. And either one's fine. There's actually an equation that will, if you give us a radial ice, say you measure on a tree limb, we can convert that to flat ice, or vice versa. But the important thing is just tell us how you took that measurement. And we'll often ask you, if you call us or you send us a report on Facebook, we'll ask you how that was measured. But again, ice accumulation is very important. It's a kind of a tricky measurement. There's some training that's available at the link below on the slide there, which again we'll provide to you in the slides after this is over. But kind of a tricky but a very important measurement for us if we do get an ice storm. So how do you get those reports to us? Well, we've got a lot of different ways to do it, and they're summarized on our website. If you go to weather.gov/CharlestonWV, or you go to weather.gov and click on the state of West Virginia, that's the easiest way to get to us. You'll see at the bottom of the web page a green icon that says Submit Storm Report. If you go to that page, it looks a little bit like this. There's a couple different sections. There's some links at the top that will take you to the resources that you can get your report to us. Then there's a section in the middle about what to report. There's actually a little cheat sheet on there about how to get a good accurate snowfall measurement, and then or freezing rain measurement. And then you can actually view the reports that have been given to us as well at the links at the bottom of that page. So again, that link is available on our webpage. Weather.gov/RLX/reports is the actual webpage, and that's available for you at any time. You can go to get a refresher on how to get your reports to us. But let's talk about a few of them in depth. We have a storm report form that you can get to from that page, and it's really good. Really good way to get your report to us. And I already see a question there from Amber about if they live outside of the Charleston, West Virginia area, how do we get your report to the local National Weather Service? I'm in Bristol, Tennessee. Yeah, so that's cool, Amber. I grew up in Johnson City, so yeah, I know Bristol well. So you're actually under the Morristown, Tennessee office of the National Weather Service. And so you can contact them, and you can say you took my class and you want to be a spotter for them, or you can use this spotter report form. The neat thing about this form is when you go through and fill it out and put your location in, it doesn't matter where in the country you are, that report will automatically go to that local web page and that office's web page. So it's a really kind of neat way to get your report. You don't really have to know if you're traveling across the country, whatever, you don't really have to know what office you're under. So hope that answers your question, but again, we'll get into that a little later if you're not in our area about how to become a spotter for your local office. But MPing app. So this is a neat little app that's available on your phone, on your tablet, whatever, but with a few taps you can send us a report. And this goes more than telling us how much snow's on the ground. This goes into telling us what type of precipitation is falling. So again, that's very important. It's very rare for us to get a storm in our region that we know is just going to be snow. Oftentimes we're in that area of transition where we get snow, sleet, freezing rain. We can have a storm where we have all that going on at the same time. And so it's very important for our spotters to let us know what's going on in their neighborhood, what type of precipitation is occurring. And this MPing app is how you can do that. You can see on this map, on the map that's changing here, this is actually showing you a bunch of reports that are coming in from the MPing app during a winter storm. And all the blue or purplish dots there are snow, and then you get different colors, including rain and mixed precipitation. But we monitor this in real time. It's available to us, and we see the reports coming in. So it's a good little app. Of course, social media is out there. We're on Facebook and Twitter, or now known as X. Those are the two that we use, and of course Facebook seems to be the most popular around our region, and we are always monitoring Facebook and Twitter for reports. Now Pictures are great, you know, like I showed you before with a ruler stuck in the snow, take a picture of that. That's awesome. Be sure to post your location. So we don't need to need to know your address or anything like that, but we want to know the city, you know, the closest city to where you're at. Sometimes social media, especially if you have your privacy settings locked down, it's hard to know exactly where you're located. And so just post your location in there, and then how much snow you've got. Amateur radio, I'm a ham radio operator. I see some folks on here that are, and so we're continuing to build that out at our new office. We moved into a new facility about a year ago, and so we're just about there. We're getting all our equipment. And got several forecasters that are ham radio operators as well. And so we're going to build that out about how to get reports over the radio. My prior office in Eastern Kentucky, it was amazing in the winter. You could just hop on the ham radio and get reports from all over the region. So we're hoping to mimic that in our region as well through various ways. But anyway, that is another way to get to us, and we can monitor several frequencies, but we're still working on that, how to actually get that built out to where we can get a good reliable way to get reports passed to us from around the region. If you want to get a little more involved than just taking a snowfall measurement anytime that you have snow, then CocoRa's is a volunteer network of rain and snowfall observers. And the map on the lower right there shows the CocoRa's observers that we had that reported to us during a rain event we had in late October. And CocoRa's observers, they purchase a rain gauge. It costs, I think, $35, and it measures. It's just a manual rain gauge, and they take a measurement every day, typically around 7 a.m. I've been a CocoRa's observer since 2008, and I take that measurement every morning and send that in with an app on my phone. And this is very important because, you know, we've got a lot of automated equipment out there. A lot of weather stations measure rainfall. None of them measure snowfall, but a lot of them measure rainfall. But we still need humans to be that check on that automation, you know, that automated equipment. We need someone actually measuring the rain, preferably in every county. And then we can use that real world information, that human being measuring the rain, to check all those automated sources that we have to make sure they're legit, you know, they're not overestimating, underestimating, what have you. So it's very important that we have these CocoRa's observers. And then another thing they do is measure snow for us. So if you're interested, and especially in West Virginia, you see that there's no observer in a county that you live in, you know, let us know that you're interested, and we may be able to even get you a rain gauge if you're interested. So, but this is a great way to go. You can go to the website there and sign up and help us fill in the gaps on this map and become a CocoRa's observer in your community. So again, that's how to get your reports. And this is a winter spotter class. I do encourage everybody to take the full-blown weather spotter class, and you can just go to our webpage and watch that video and take a short quiz, and that'll fill you in on all the other elements. And we also have a 1-800 number that we give to spotters as well. So after this presentation's over, in about an hour, you'll get an email that you can follow the instructions on there and fill out your information that you want to be a spotter for us, and we'll provide that phone number as well. That's another way to get your reports to us. So again, those spotters are very valuable, and we don't ever give your information out. We just use that internally, and we keep track of all the spotters. And you know, if we want to know about what's going on in an area, spotters are often the first people we reach out to see what's actually going on in that community. So switching to the third section here, forecasting winter weather. I see some questions coming in, so that's awesome. Just keep in mind, we'll go back at the end of the presentation and answer those. So I'll get to those here in just a minute. So let's talk about forecasting winter weather. Why is it so hard to forecast winter storms in our area, and how can you get winter weather forecast information? So forecasting winter storms is hard. Every meteorologist thinks they live in an area that it's the hardest to forecast for, but our region, due to the topography we have and the typical storm track, it is one of the toughest areas to forecast for. So key ingredients for a winter storm are cold air, of course. You have to have air that's cold enough to cause snow and ice to form. You need moisture and you need lift. And so here's a typical winter storm across the central parts of the United States. We're going to have one of these coming up next week, it looks like, somewhere tracking up through the central part of the United States or Ohio Valley. In advance of that cold front, you can get thunderstorms, you can get severe weather in the winter, even tornadoes. Along that warm front, that red line, you get a mix of precipitation, some rain, and then behind the low pressure system in the colder air, you often get snow or maybe even some mix. So that surface low track is very important in determining who gets what. And we did a little research several years ago, and we looked at the top 10 winter storms, the biggest snow producers for our larger cities, and we plotted the surface low track. And I'll go through these and just watch how the low track really favors eastern North Carolina and southeastern Virginia. If you look at all these in Huntington, look how they all track up. Most of them track up into eastern North Carolina, eastern Virginia. Charleston, same thing. I mean, almost 50 miles either side of Norfolk, Virginia, low pressure tracks that direction. Parkersburg, really kind of the same thing. Maybe a little bit further to the west, but really the same track. Elkins, kind of the same location. And Beckley, kind of scattered a little more at Beckley, but really kind of the same location. Again, that low track up the coastal Carolinas, up through Norfolk, Virginia, and off in the western Atlantic, that means there's cold air over our region. And that's low track, that means that Atlantic moisture is getting thrown back over that cold air and results in a lot of snow for our region. So that's the best storm track, is that low moving up from, say, eastern Georgia up the coastal Carolinas to around Norfolk, Virginia. If you see that on the weather maps, if you look at the weather models, you see that, then that's a good indication that if that low does indeed track that direction, we're going to get a good winter storm. Now, the other complication with winter storms is not just that low track, which just a small variation can mean a big difference, but it's the temperature of the entire atmosphere, basically from the clouds to the ground. So this shows that real well, and this orange that you see in the diagram is warm air, and so temperatures that are a few degrees above freezing, we'll say. So all four of these scenarios, it's snow falling from the clouds, but if that warm air is pretty deep, then that snow melts, turns to rain, and continues as rain all the way down to the surface. Now, if that warm layer is a little shallower and you've got a layer of cold air near the ground that's below freezing, then the snow melts to rain, and the rain doesn't have time to refreeze until it hits the cold objects, such as trees or the ground or pavement. That's freezing rain, and that's a really tricky scenario. So if that warm air is a little thinner and you've got a really pretty deep layer of sub-freezing air below that warm air, then the snow melts, turns into rain, but then that rain refreezes and turns into sleet. Ice pellets is another name for sleet. And then, of course, if your temperature is below freezing, then you can get snow. Now, you can have snow with temperatures above freezing if the air has certain tendencies, mainly being a little dry. I've seen it snow with the temperature at the ground in the mid-40s, but that means it's really cold above the ground. And so there's some variation here, but that warm layer of air is what we really have to key in on a lot of times, because that warm air, I believe it's Amber was down in East Tennessee, Bristol, and you know, that warm air comes up that Great Valley of East Tennessee, and it comes up from the Gulf of Mexico and floods up west of the mountains through that Great Valley of East Tennessee, up the west side of the mountains into our region, into the Mid-Ohio Valley. And that's something we have to really be aware of and forecast for. The thing that's really complicated, you know, we really have a good understanding of the surface temperature. We've got weather stations all over the place. I did see a question in here about if we use weather underground. You know, we do. I have a weather station here at my house that funnels into weather underground. We look at, and there's weather observations all over the place. So we have a really good understanding of the surface temperature. The problem is, remember, it's not really the surface temperature that's always the most important thing. It could be the temperature 5,000 feet above the ground, that warm layer. The map on the right shows the locations across our country where the Weather Service, where we launch upper air balloons. And these balloons go up twice a day, typically around 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. in the evening. And they measure the temperature of the atmosphere, the pressure, the wind speed direction, and the humidity levels, all the way up to roughly 100,000 feet in the atmosphere. So we get that good sampling. The problem is we don't launch those here in Charleston. The closest is Wilmington, Ohio, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and in Roanoke, Virginia. So in the winter, a lot of times that warm air, again, it comes up through East Tennessee, up into Southwest Virginia, Eastern Kentucky, up and through the Mid-Ohio Valley, in between all of these upper air balloon launch locations. Now, there are some aircraft data that airplanes are properly equipped with thermometers and sensors that can give us these measurements. But again, we get one every now and then that flies into Charleston. It's very rare, maybe once a week. So again, we're in this void here where we don't really know, we don't have any what we call in situ, actual measurements of that warm layer of air above the ground. We have to rely on computer models. And computer models often just don't adequately depict that warm nose of air above the ground. So it's really a challenge. You know, we really have to, sometimes we are not aware of what precip type is going to occur until it actually starts falling. And then we see those reports come in, and sometimes we have to adjust really quickly because, you know, it's obvious when we expect maybe all snow to occur, all the computer models are forecasting all snow, but then we get reports of sleet or freezing rain down in Southwest Virginia or Eastern Kentucky as that precipitation starts to move in. Then sometimes we realize that, hey, that warm air layer of air above the ground is much deeper and warmer than the computer models are saying. So we have to adjust our forecast really quickly. And unfortunately that happens. And that's why your observations are extremely important to us in the winter. Forecasting snow, it is the hardest thing that we do. We have to get the temperature correct. And again, not just at the surface, but above the surface where we don't have any thermometers. We have to get that temperature right. And just a degree, I'm honest with you, just a 1 degree of temperature 5,000 feet above the ground can make the difference between snow and just a cold rain. It really can. We also have to get the amount of liquid that's going to fall from the sky correct. And rainfall amount, that's the second hardest thing we do. It's really difficult to know exactly how much of that liquid is going to fall. And then we have to figure out the snow ratio. Is it going to be a wet or a dry snow? And you know, that's largely dependent on the temperature. You know, if it's around freezing all the way up through the atmosphere, then it's typically a wet snow. And then if it's really, really cold outside, then you get a drier snow. But we have to get that snow ratio correct. And so if we get any of that wrong, and we will, I mean, the atmosphere is too complex to ever get 100% correct. So if we get any of those wrong, then the snowfall forecast will be different than our forecast. So that's why we like to use ranges. You know, we don't just say, yeah, you're going to get 3.4 inches of snow. We say 2 to 5, and that's because of the uncertainty that the atmosphere presents to us. And so more on that later about how to get that forecast, but it's important to know the terminology too when we're forecasting winter storms. We use the watch warning system in the winter like we do it for tornadoes and severe thunderstorms. And so if you hear a winter storm watch has been issued, then significant winter weather is possible. We're at least 50% confident that a major winter storm is going to hit your area, whether it be snow or ice. And they could cause significant impacts. But again, we're only 50%. And these are issued typically at maybe a day in advance, 2 days in advance, maybe 3 days in advance. That's your heads up that a significant storm is possible. But the track could shift and we might have to cancel that. Or once we get more confident, then we'll either issue a winter storm warning or a winter weather advisory. So the winter storm warning is significant snow and ice amounts will pose a threat to life and property. You need to take necessary precautions, avoid travel. The winter weather advisory is more, you can think, a travel advisory. The snow and ice is not going to be significantly impactful unless you're driving, and then you must use extreme caution when those are issued. Snow squalls are, you can kind of think thunderstorms in the winter. These have major impacts. Snow squalls can reduce the visibility to near zero. They can cause a glazing, a quick black ice, a refreeze on the roads. They can really mess up the roads. So we issue snow squall warnings for these. And these can trigger wireless emergency alerts on your cell phone. And we target the main highways during the peak travel times for these. But if you see one of these on your phone, that's what we're warning you. We're warning you that you could go from sunshine and nice travel conditions to a whiteout in just less than a mile in these snow squalls, and they can cause some really big trouble. So there's a lot of different ways to get weather information. Weather.gov, again, that's our website. Weather.gov/CharlestonWV will get you straight to the Charleston, West Virginia National Weather Service office. Weather.gov/your zip code. That's a great thing. I'll show you in a minute. That'll take you to the point-and-click forecast for your region. Mobile.weather.gov is another website that's geared more towards cell phones. We're phasing that out because our website overall is going to be more cell phone friendly here before it is now, and it's only going to get better. Of course, Facebook, Twitter, NOAA Weather Radio is a great way to get weather forecast information. Of course, local TV and radio. I tell folks to always, when it comes to winter storms, is get your forecast, get your weather information local, whether it be from us in the Weather Service or your local TV meteorologist. Get that local expertise from folks that live in that community over some generic app on your phone. There are some reliable apps and websites out there, but always make sure that you get your forecast when it matters local. So weather.gov/your zip code will take you to this page that you can get all your weather information for the next 7 days for that location. And then down at the bottom of that page, you'll see an hourly weather graph. So you can click on that and get very detailed hourly weather information for your location, including snowfall, really localized snowfall forecast information will show up there as well. We have a winter weather page. Comprehensive winter weather forecast information can be found on all the Weather Service offices webpage by looking for the little blue snowflake icon down in the lower left or at the web address on your screen. And so this page will give you a whole bunch of information on the winter storm that's coming, including snowfall, the amounts and timing information. When's it going to start? When's it going to stop? Impact information. It's all available there. So let's take a look at it. Remember I told you how we like to use ranges. And so here's a past snowstorm we had. I had to go back 2 years because we just didn't have anything really to look at last winter. But January 2022, this was our forecast snowfall for this event, about a day out. And you can see that in general, 4 to 7 inches of snow expected across our region. On this winter page, you'll also see a worst case and a best case scenario. So for this particular situation, based on all the computer modeling that we saw, the best case scenario as far as impacts go is shown here. So you can subtract maybe a couple inches in most areas off of our forecast. Now, the worst case scenario based on all the computer models was significantly higher. And so you can see when this gap between the best case, the high end, and the low end is high, then our confidence is pretty low. That, we have our forecast here. It's always going to be available to you, but based on the computer modeling, you can see there's a big range in potential outcomes here. You can also get the percent chance of different thresholds. So if 6 inches of snow is important to you, if you're an emergency manager or work for DOH and you've got that threshold in your mind, you can actually see what our percentage is of reaching that threshold, and you can go all the way up to a foot and more on that winter page. So what happened in this particular example? So here's what happened, and this is why we do ranges. And so Parkersburg, for instance, Parkersburg, West Virginia, we had a forecast of 5.1 inches. The worst case scenario was 10 inches, and guess what the final total was? 10.3 inches. So at Parkersburg, the worst case scenario that we were portraying in our graphics won out. At Charleston, the forecast was 5.3 inches. The worst case scenario was 9 inches. The final total was 6. So our forecast was pretty spot on in Charleston. Little light, but it's pretty much spot on. Look at Morgantown though. Again, winter storms are tough. Forecast 5.8 inches. The worst case scenario was a foot. The best case scenario was 3 inches. The final total was 3 inches. So there's 3 different cities, the same storm, and one city, the worst case scenario won out. Another city, the forecast was correct. Another city, the best case scenario won out. And that's just the way winter storms are. It's very tricky. So when you're looking at that information, look at our expected snowfall, but keep this best case and worst case scenarios in your mind. I always tell people, you know, you plan for the worst and hope for the best. And that's just because winter storms are tough. We added something new last winter, and this is going again this winter, the West Virginia highway forecast profiles. So we've all the interstates in our area, you can go and click on the interstate and you can get a profile of how the snow is going to affect that highway. We also do Route 33, Route 50, and US 219. So it's different way to view the snowfall information. But if you're traveling a great distance on these interstates, you can kind of look and you can see and kind of plan your route based on that information. The winter storm severity index, kind of like we talked about earlier with the winter season severity index, the WSSI, or the accumulated winter season severity index. This is a similar index, but for individual winter storms. And this is available on our winter page and is a really nice tool to look at impacts, how that winter storm is going to affect you. We also have a graphical hazardous weather outlook on our web page. Just look for this 4-panel kind of a brown icon on all the web pages, all the National Weather Service web pages, and you click on that and it'll take you to this. I call this the weather hazard dashboard. Just a really quick way to get briefed up on any kind of hazards that we're going to have over the next week. And you can even see statewide versions of this for West Virginia, Ohio, and Kentucky at the links on the slide there. Again, these slides will be provided. All right, so now the part that everybody wants to know about, right? What's the winter outlook supposed to be? So about August, the Farmer's Almanacs come out, and that's when we start getting the questions. So the Weather Service actually, throughout the fall and into the early winter, we issue a winter outlook. Actually, the first one comes out in October, and really keying in on the Pacific Ocean. And El Nino is the kind of buzzword this winter. If you've been following the weather and you've looked at the winter outlooks past few winters, you've heard La Nina. And in fact, we had 3 La Nina winters in a row. And all La Nina is a water temperature pattern in the Pacific that's cooler than normal. So El Nino is the opposite, warmer than normal weather in the Central Pacific. You can see through the Central Pacific here, this red swath along the equator. And that's showing the temperatures there are warmer than normal. This time last year, it was the opposite. It was blue through there, cooler than normal. And even though that's a long way away, thousands of miles away, that water temperature pattern, because the Pacific is so large, it actually kind of influences the weather all over the planet, really. And we're actually forecasting a strong El Nino this winter and a 35% chance of a historically strong El Nino. Could be the strongest on record, not out of the realm of possibility. So that really drives the weather, again, over the northern hemisphere and the U.S. And you can see a typical El Nino weather pattern for our region. The mid-Ohio Valley is dry, and we have a cold and wetter pattern. That storm track really favors the southeast. And if you know anybody that lives around New Orleans, man, that's good news for them because they're in a severe drought down there. They're going to get a lot of rain this winter. But that storm track to our south is really kind of important. So what's our forecast? The NOAA Winter Outlook is actually the seasonal forecast is for a warmer than normal winter. That's the best outlook right now, is above average across all of our region when it comes to temperatures. Now, you might say that and say, well, it's going to be another winter like last winter. Well, not so fast. Hang tight just a minute. Precipitation outlook is on your right, and you can see the southeast really keying in on this region for a really wet winter because that storm track is down here. But remember what I told you about that storm track, that we really need to get a lot of snow for our region. Where is it? Again, it's right through this area, up through Georgia and the Carolinas. So we think that there's going to be a fair amount of storms that take that track, that favor the Carolinas and Georgia. So all we need is just enough cold air when that happens to get some snows for our region. So while it may be a milder than normal winter, I think it's going to be punctuated by some good snows. And when you look at moderate to strong El Niños, or just the strong El Niños, this is actually a map showing the snowfall anomaly, or how the snow tends to fall. It's above normal. In fact, I did a little more research. If you look at all the moderate to strong El Niños going back to the 50s, you can really count on one hand how many have had a below average snowfall winter across our region, especially in the mountains. Now, you get back towards southeast Ohio, a little bit drier there, so it's a little tougher, but especially for the West Virginia mountains, it looks good for some snow this winter. So if you like snow, I think you're going to be happy. So again, overall, probably a warmer than normal winter, but a warmer than normal winter that's punctuated with a few pretty good snows, I think is a good way to characterize how I think this winter is going to go. This kind of backs it up. Again, this top 10 snowfalls in Charleston, 6 of them occurred during El Nino winters. December 2009 and January 2016, the most recent examples. In fact, January 2016 is probably the last really widespread snowstorm we've had across our region. That was during a pretty strong El Nino. And then, yeah, let it snow. And in Elkins, 4 of the top 10 snowstorms in Elkins occurred during El Nino winters. So what do you need to do with that information? The number one best thing you can do to get prepared for these big snows is have an emergency kit. 72 hours of food, water, and medicine, and anything else you need to be comfortable, and for your pets as well. Anything you need to be comfortable for 72 hours. Because, of course, the biggest impact from these really big winter storms is power outages. So that's really one of the best things you can do in any situation, is have that 72-hour kit. And you can go to ready.gov/kit, and there's all kinds of neat information to help you get that together. Don't forget your car. Have an emergency kit in your car. This really came up last winter for that Arctic outbreak around Christmas. You know, if your car breaks down and the wind chill's 30 below zero, that can get bad really quickly. So, you know, think about that. If you're going on a long trip, have that emergency kit in your car. And again, ready.gov/car will help you with what to do there. Each year, more than 5,000 people are killed and more than 418,000 injured due to weather-related vehicle crashes. And a lot of those are in the winter. So take it slow. If most vehicles now have that thermometer on them, you know, if you're seeing temperatures around freezing on there, drive like you're on ice, because you may very well be. And check the forecast and road conditions between your home and your destination, and make sure people know where you're going. And of course, some other considerations: know the difference between hypothermia and frostbite, and how to properly handle someone that's showing those symptoms. You know, number one, if hypothermia, if they're confused, shivering, difficulty speaking, get them to medical attention immediately. And then some things you can do around the house. The two biggest ones, and I had this done today, is clean your chimney. That's very important. Chimney fires are very common, especially early in the winter. But then backup generators. Test those out now, but then also never run those inside your garage or too close to your house, because carbon monoxide can kill you from having a generator running too close to your house, or especially in your garage or inside. Never do that. All right, so that's all we've got. I've got some instructions in about an hour. Look for an email from GoToWebinar, and there's going to be some follow-on instructions if you want to be a registered spotter for us. There's also a feedback form in there and a certificate of participation. So there's a link in there that you can go to if you want a certificate saying you took the class today. Just go to that web page and fill in your information and select today's class, and you can print off a certificate showing what you've done and your hours. All right, so let's look over the questions, and don't worry about raising your hand. If you have a question, again, type it in the questions box, and we'll start from the top and we'll see what questions we've got here. So let's see. Okay, so Amber, I think I answered your question there. If you're outside the West Virginia area, thank you for watching our class, but go to weather.gov, find your place on the map there, click on it, and that'll take you to your local office, and reach out to them. Every Weather Service office has a webmaster email link, and you can tell them you took the class today and you want to be a spotter, and they'll provide you some additional information. All right, so now we got a question about the WSSI. Does the WSSI use the same categories? Okay, gotcha. Now, the WSSI, the Winter Storm Severity Index, uses the variables such as blowing snow, flash freeze. There's like 6 of them there. Falling snow, the snow weight. The accumulative winter season severity index looks at mainly temperatures and snowfall. So that's a very good question. I don't like those acronyms because they're too close together. But the winter storm severity index is again looking at snow load, snow amounts, flash freeze is one of the components, blowing snow, whatnot. That accumulated winter season severity index looks at mainly temperature and snowfall over the entire winter. So very good question, Sarah. Is there an app for the storm report form? That form that we talked about, that actually is mobile friendly. You can pull it up on your phone. So just go to the address. What I would do is when you get the slides here, or you find that, is bookmark it, and that way you have it on your phone, and it should work great on your phone. Moved to Jackson County, Ohio in June from Lawrence County. Is Jackson County is Jackson County? Yep. Jackson County, Ohio, we are, Richard. And so you're welcome to be a spotter for us, and so send us your information. Move to Tennessee, Cincinnati. Okay, Amber, yeah, so just forward your information to the Morristown office. Again, you can go to their website, and down at the bottom there'll be a link to a webmaster email, and just shoot them an email, tell them your name and that you've been a spotter for us and that you want to be a spotter for them. Anthony Cavalucci is my counterpart there at the Morristown office, and he'll help you out. Michael, my ham call sign is KJ4FYM, Kilo Juliet 4 Foxtrot Yankee Mike. And Monty, yep, the Cocoa Raws. Again, if you're in West Virginia, one of those counties that's not covered, we actually have Monty there. He's offered to purchase a gauge for you. So just contact me, and we'll get you set up there. Again, we're trying to spread that network to the state of West Virginia, so those counties that don't have observers, that would be great. So Michael, that gauge, if you go to CocoRahs, COCORAHS.org, and if you look over on the right hand side of the page, there's a link to purchase those rain gauges that they use for CocoRahs. And you might say, why do I want to pay $35 for a rain gauge when I can go to Walmart and get one for $5? Well, those Walmart gauges, you get what you pay for. They're not very accurate, and they're not graduated very much, so you might be able to tell how much rain has fallen within a 1/10 or 1/4 of an inch. The CocoRahs rain gauge will actually tell you within a 100th of an inch, which is what we need to know about how much rain has fallen, and it'll hold up to 12 inches of rain as well. So you should be covered in a real catastrophic flood. If that'll be recorded there. If it doesn't wash away, hopefully that doesn't happen. But if you were to get 10 inches of rain, it's going to be recorded in that gauge and not overflow. Let's see. 6 Jackson. Yeah, Bob. Bob Swank there. He's our cooperative weather observer. I didn't talk about cooperative weather observers, but we have volunteers that measure and take temperature measurements, precipitation measurements every morning. We provide them the equipment, and that's really those cooperative weather observers are the backbone of the climate observation network across our country. And so Bob's been our CocoRahs observer in Jackson for many years, and we really appreciate that. I answered that question about weather underground. We do look at that, Randy, so thank you. Okay, Russ, woolly worm. Yep. Yeah, the old woolly worm. The persimmon forecast is another one that's pointing to a. I don't know if you know about the persimmon seed forecast, but if you cut a persimmon seed open and it's got a spoon in it, then that tells you it's going to be a rough winter. And a lot of them have spoons in them, so it is what it is. Charlottesville, Virginia. So we got somebody from Charlottesville wondering how much snow they could get. You know what I said about the storm track, that really does favor Western Virginia as well for a few big snows this winter. So overall, you should have a warmer than normal winter, but wetter than normal with a few pretty good snows in there is a good bet. So thank you for the question. Why does the Mid-Ohio Valley often have the snow-killing warm wedge? Well, I think I talked about that, Michael. Again, that warm air likes to come up from the south, and it'll come up through Tennessee and eastern Kentucky, west of the mountains, and it really does, it kills our snow a lot of time. And so, like I said before, we don't have any measurements of that warm nose. You know, we don't launch balloons here, so a lot of times we're kind of guessing about how strong that warm nose is, and a lot of times the models underdo it. So the models will say, oh, you're going to start to snow there in Parkersburg, but then it starts to precipitate, and sometimes it's sleet or freezing rain or rain, and then we have to think, well, that model was wrong, and sometimes we have to adjust our forecast pretty quick. So, but yeah, that's that warm nose. You can thank Tennessee for that, Michael. That's where it comes from a lot. So I travel a lot. Is the highway forecast available for other states? No, it's not. That's a very good question, and we've only created that for our area for right now. There is a project going on that is, if you go out, and a lot of the Western offices produce this travel forecast. It's really kind of neat, and I think it's going to expand to the rest of the country, and it gives you a really quick glance at how winter weather is affecting the roads. So stay tuned for that, Michael. I'm hoping that they roll it out for the rest of the country in soon. But if you want to go, you know, you go out to maybe the Salt Lake City office and look around on their webpage, you'll find that, and you'll see what I'm talking about. How could you know El Nino if it's going to hit our state, and is it going to be bad this year? So Jared, El Nino is actually out west in the Pacific Ocean, but it kind of influences the weather patterns over the country. So it's not like El Nino is going to hit our state, but it kind of will push and nudge the systems to where they could affect our state, like I said before. So good question. Um, will there be an advanced spotter class for our area? None are in the works right now, Delbert, but that's a good question. We hold those every few years, but we just had one recently in Jackson County and Benton County, but we don't have any scheduled right now. I do encourage you, if you see other Weather Service offices having those advanced classes, feel free to take them. It's really the same information, you know, it'll apply to our area as well. Monty talks about the ice accretion pilot program on CoCoRaHS. If you're interested in CoCoRaHS, they are also getting some real detailed ice accumulation information, including pictures. So I encourage you to participate in that if we do get an ice storm and you're interested. Again, that CoCoRaHS it's really a neat thing. It's a volunteer. It's you know, strictly volunteer, but it's so helpful to so many different people. So Michael, I will email the slides out and I'll post them to our webpage. So let me show you where those will be. So if you go to weather.gov/RLX and you scroll down and go to weather spotters and scroll down, you will see two YouTube videos here. There's a basic weather spotter class. This is one over severe weather, flooding, and then the winter weather class. So give me it's deer season next week in West Virginia, so I might be a little busy next week, but give me a few days. We'll get the winter class up there, and then we'll put the slides here. And I'll also mail those out to our spotters as well, email those out to our spotters. So again, this will be where they're at. You can actually click on this and get last year's right now, and it's a lot of the same information. All right, thank you, David. So Chris, I can't give you those frequencies right now because I don't have them off the top of my head, but we're still working out details on how to get snowfall and weather information using ham radio with the Skywarn nets that go on around the area. So right now we're focusing on 2 meters. We do have HF as well, which we'll be working on as well, but that's still kind of in the works. But basically any of the 2 meter frequencies we should be able to talk on. And let's see, I do not see much information east of the range around Slainsville. Yeah, so Dean, that forecast over there, you're kind of over in the eastern panhandle, and I think again it kind of applies similar to the mountains where you could get you could get some snow this winter. You could get at least a few significant snows over there for you all. Yes, Richard, our ham radio station will have HF capability. We're working on that. You share the highway information with DOH. Yes, we have. And yeah, we do, Joe. That's been shared with them. And again, it's kind of a new product, but please share it with whoever you would like. It's freely available. Michael, the home weather station recommendation. So I can't really recommend one over the other. I do have my favorites, but we're our position. We can't really say one or the other. There's a bunch of them out there. Some of them you get what you pay for. You may get a cheaper one and have to replace it every couple years. But they're all pretty accurate and reliable if you mount them correctly. And so I do encourage you, if you do get a weather station, do a little homework on how to properly mount it and to get it to where it'll provide the most accurate measurements. Jeff, yeah, looking forward to getting amateur radio up and running. Yeah, we're really looking forward to it. Dean, best point of contact would be me, Tony.Edwards@NOAA.gov, to reach out for more on that. If you're in the Eastern Panhandle, Ellen, your office is the Sterling, Virginia office, the Baltimore, Washington. That's where you'll get your information. Chris Strong is my counterpart over there. You can reach out to that office, tell them you want to be a spotter, but that's your local office. That's where you get all your warnings and information from. And Bob, yep, been an observer since '93. Yeah. So Russ, stay away from the lacrosse rain gauges. Yeah, some of those rain gauges, you have to watch them, and that's why I'm a Kokoros observer. I have that manual gauge, and so I have a Davis Vantage Pro station at home, and I always check what it's telling me is occurring based on that 4-inch gauge, and you can calibrate the gauges. So I make sure mine lines up pretty close. Yeah, Amber, we're blaming everything on Tennessee. Go Vols, by the way. It broke my heart last week. Thank you, Russ. Any snow? Benjamin, Thanksgiving week, there could be some snow around. I know there were some rumors of snow that made social media there, but not anything certain. I think the mountains could see some flakes, but there's at least a possibility of some snow, something to keep an eye on as we get later on next week. It does look like it's going to be cold enough. We just need to see if we're going to have a system around that could cause the snow. Ice chances for southeast Ohio, they're always a possibility. Robert, forecasting ice storms farther than 2 or 3 days out is very, very difficult. Even forecasting ice storms a day out is difficult. So I can't really say whether or not you'll get one. But it looks like, at least for snowstorms, and the bigger signal for that would be over the mountains of West Virginia down into North Carolina. So Southeast Ohio actually tends to kind of be drier than normal in these situations. So we'll see. It's close, though. It's close. Do you use WindLink? Not at this time. We might in the future. So good question. Why the void in weather balloons over West Virginia? That came about during modernization of the Weather Service back in the mid-90s. We used to launch balloons in Huntington, and then they decided to shut that down whenever they shut that office down, and they thought that the Wilmington, Ohio office would be good, close enough. And for most situations it is, but these winter storms are different animals. If I had my way, we'd be launching balloons here, but that's above my pay grade, so to speak. Randy, do we see any rain relief for multiple wildfires now in West Virginia? We should get around a ½ inch of rain tomorrow, or tomorrow night, and then some more pretty good rain probably Monday into Tuesday. So we have 2 opportunities now for some good wetting rain. So I think that'll do a number on them. I don't know that it'll end our season or not, but definitely a kind of a change in the pattern coming up. For Winchester, Virginia, I believe that's the Sterling office. Michael. So again, go to weather.gov, type in Winchester, Virginia, type in your area there in the upper left corner. I'll show you how to do that. Let's see, weather.gov, and then type in Winchester. Let's see who that is. I'm thinking it's Sterling. Yeah, Baltimore, Washington, that's the Sterling office. So that's your office. And again, just let them know that you want to be a spotter and they'll get you going. So we've got a few more here. So getting a yardstick or ruler to get in 1/10 of an inch graduations is difficult. We get them through our supply in the Weather Service, but that's internal. So I don't know. But again, it's not that important. You can just take the measurement and tell us your fractional measurement. We can convert that. Is there a handheld radio that you use? If so, what do you use? I'm sure there are, but we have a base station. And then if you're talking about weather radios, there are handheld weather radios that you can get. Is there a quiz for this class? No, there's not. If you do go on our website and take the full spotter class, Amber, for the severe weather and flooding, there is a little quiz there that you can take, but note this is just more informational. And one more question. Will we have a decent snow ski season this year? Yeah, so I think so. I think so. I think there's going to be some warm weather, but then there's going to be some big snows in between. And so, it may not be one of those epic, thinking back to 78 where there's snow on the ground all winter. Might not be one of those, but I think there's going to be plenty of snow falling in the mountains. And, keep an eye on that forecast and head for the hills whenever you see it. Thank you for the kind words, and George. And what are the best radars for laptop and mobile device for severe alerts and things? There's a bunch of them out there. I use Radar Scope a lot. It's a really good app for radar. And FEMA has a really good app that you can set up, I believe, up to 5 locations to get severe weather alerts. So yeah, Storm Shield is one. For laptop, yeah, I don't know. I think Radar Scope does have a PC and laptop version, but I've never used it. But our website, I'd just basically use the base radar that's on there. Thank you, Randy. Do you have a problem taking snow measurements in millimeters? Well, Dean, Google has a great converter on there, so we can convert millimeters to inches. So, but yeah, we don't get metric measurements very much, but we can handle it. Okay, Weather Your Way. Bonnie says Weather Your Way has snow rulers in 1/10 of an increment. Yeah, so there you go. Just Google Weather Your Way, and they have a lot of good stuff there. All righty, and I got some feedback. Thank you very much. Yeah, so Cameron, this training again will be recorded, and we'll stick it on our webpage. Just go to weather.gov/CharlestonWV, look for weather spotters, and that's where we'll post this. So we should get that up in a few days, but right now last year's version is available. So all right, I think that's it. Thank you, Bill, and Suzanne, thank you. All right, so we'll end it. We're a little over, but some very, very good questions. I love the winter class because I get so much good questions on here. So thank you all for your attendance and for sticking it out. I hope you learned something. And I hope you have some snow to measure. Just remember to send us those measurements this winter when it snows outside. So thank you all. Have a great evening.